Materials form the largest single expenditure item in most of the manufacturing organizations. They usually represent 50 to 60% of the total cost of the final product. Materials management is considered to be a stock function, and it serves essentially the production and marketing of manufactured goods. However, data holds that management of materials is sometimes a line authority rather than a stock activity. But he further clarifies that in its immediate concern with the materials, a materials management does that stock function which his objectives require. Management stands for its objectives of economic survival and profits, and so does the materials management also. If the materials management is looked at from such a functional angle, it stands essentially as a stock function, which is usually a service and an advisory in nature. Materials management is essentially a service function in blend and objectivity. It is this thinking in the field of management of materials combined with three segments of management which has given rise to the concept of integrated materials management. Indeed, management of materials is not a single function. It is a combination of independent functions, and it has become interdependent functions. It is therefore neither treated nor performed in isolation. So all independent functions are made as interdependent functions because of this materials management. It never appears in a vacuum. It is a functional management which is closely associated with the other fields of the management area. So materials management is said to be a stock activity, and sometimes it is a line activity. Now we shall see whether materials management is taken as a science or an art. Materials management is both a science as well as an art of managing materials. It is an application to achieve the desired results. To meet these ends, the management is functionally divided into broad but basic functions known as the three segments of management. Among the three segments of management, the first comes the arrangement of finance, making provisions for the operation of the enterprise, for which the management has to ensure the availability of adequate finance for a smooth functioning of the organization without any interruption. The second segment says about the assembling, acquisition, storage and production of materials. This is said to be the actual operation of an enterprise. For an efficient and purposeful operation of the enterprise, materials are to be assembled, acquired, stored and produced so that the organization may move ahead uninterrupted with a high speed and with a value of goodwill. The third segment is the distribution. The organization operates for the ultimate consumer. It is the basic function of any management to arrange the distribution so as to get the goods and services reach the ultimate consumer. These are all the basic three segments, namely arrangement of finance, assembling, acquisition, storage and production, and the distribution of the materials. These segments of the management will slowly but steadily will crept into the materials management, giving birth to the concept of integrated materials management. Obviously, management of materials largely depends upon the availability of finance, the proper procurement, storage and utilization of materials, the effective handling, issuance and disposal of the incoming and outgoing materials. The integration of all these three segments is said to be necessary for any organization to achieve the desired results. So, with the background of the materials management definitions and materials management as a service function and the materials management to be taken as a science and an art, now we shall see what is the integrated approach of the materials management. The essence of a materials management is the coordination of various departments of a company. As the materials department largely spends large sums of money on the purchase of the materials, it is closely associated with the finance department. As the finance department has to sanction the money for the purchase of the raw materials, the materials department is closely associated with the finance department for sending the bills to sanction the amount to the suppliers. Where a product design is involved, the constructive coordination with the design department becomes essential because the knowledge of materials availability or the substitute materials comes only from the materials department. So, while designing the products, the basic materials are needed for the design. Suppose if the basic materials are not available in the market, what are all the substitute materials that are available? These information will be given only by the materials department, that is the manager of the materials department. The importance of redesign value analysis is to be stressed, and the close coordination with the transport, quality control and the instructions department of an organization are also to be studied as an integrated approach. Only an integrated approach to the various problems of materials management can result in the optimum benefits. If this integrated approach does not exist, mere application of tools and techniques of materials management cannot result in the cost reduction, which is the primary aim of the materials management. There needs to be a greater efficiency in the entire fields of materials management, and this covers practically all the departments. Take for example, inventory control and production planning are said to be closely connected and interrelated. This in turn depends upon the market demand forecast and the production estimates. Similarly, purchasing is closely connected with the internal inventory control. The effect of the purchases will be reflected on the cost of the production. Sometimes the purchases can be costly based on a bad planning, but this may reflect on the increased cost of production. An integrated approach to materials management is only a concentrated and coordinated effort for obtaining greater efficiency in the fields of materials utilization and the cost of materials. Purchasing department normally has a close coordination with the materials manager. Purchase department procures materials as per the requirements to meet the quantity and time specifications. The activities of the purchasing department includes selecting acceptable vendors and negotiating with them on purchase terms, the price, the quality and other related factors. The interaction with the vendors to develop material specifications, to control the quality and to solve the problems involved in the receipts and the usage of the materials. Placing purchase orders for materials and services, considering economic levels, open ordering, make or buy consideration, priority of the orders and the vendor's performance. Expediting the delivery of materials, keeping abreast of the prevailing market conditions and knowing about the arrival of the new materials that results in the cost reduction. So these activities will be included under purchasing function as it is closely related with the materials management. Next, receiving and storing the materials. Receiving and storing functions is also closely related with the materials management. This function will accept, store, handle and issue materials and process the necessary documents to record the transactions. The activities of the stores includes the receipt of materials, verification of the quantity and preparation of the materials received reports, the storage of materials in accordance with the pre-specified use of stores by using the right facilities and equipment and practicing a system to enable the easy identification of the materials. Issuing of materials based on the authorized material acquisition slip is also an activity of the stores department. The physical checking of the stocks to verify the accuracy of the transactions through a constant, special and annual inventories. When we have the perpetual inspection, a continued and a constant inspection of the physical stock will ensure the amount of money that is invested in the capital is assured and the stores are to be secured based on the physical verification. Here I mean the theft of the stock or any scams in the purchases or any lethargicness in maintaining the materials can be avoided by having proper auditing or proper physical checking of the materials. Next comes the production control. It is a function which is said to be a related function to the materials management. The continuous supply of the raw material will definitely facilitate the control of production in a very efficient and smoother manner. Next comes the inventory control. Inventory control is responsible for supplying the materials to fulfill the production plans and schedules and ensures that it is achieved through the minimum required stocks. Physical distribution. Physical distribution receives, stores, select orders, packs, transports the finished goods, processes the necessary papers to record such transactions, and arranges for the transportation of inbound and outbound shipments. Material cost control and cost reduction. The material cost control and cost reduction is said to be the major functions of the materials management. Whenever the control is exercised, definitely the cost gets reduced. When the cost gets reduced, automatically we will have a control over the prices of the finished goods, which will benefit the end customers or the ultimate customers. So the functions which are included in the materials management are the production function, purchasing function, storing function, inventory control, physical distribution, and the control function, material cost control function. So these are all the functional departments which are closely related to the materials management and make materials management as an integrated approach. Now we shall see the classification of the inventories. Every organization depends upon the materials and services from other organizations to varying extents. These materials and services are obtained through the exchange of money. Various materials used are the inputs such as raw materials, consumables, and spares. These are required to be purchased and made available to the shops or the users as and when needed to ensure uninterrupted production. Efficient management of the input of the raw materials is of paramount importance in any business organization to maximize the productivity of the materials, which ultimately adds to the profitability of the organization. The term material refers to the commodities which are consumed in the production process. The materials that are consumed in the production process can be divided into two main categories: direct materials and indirect materials. Direct materials are those materials which are directly entering into the production. Indirect materials are those materials which will help the production and will form part of a small proportion of cost on the total cost. But the direct material will form part of a major part, a major proportion in the total cost. I'll tell you an example. Say furniture is produced with the wood as a direct material. The nails, the paints we use are indirect materials, without which the production will not get completed, but the proportion of the wood is higher than the indirect materials. Likewise, a gold in an ornament, a paper in a book, a cloth in a shirt will be a direct material. The threads, buttons in a shirt is said to be an indirect material. So indirect materials forms a very small portion of your total cost of production, but without which the production could not get completed. But direct materials are said to be the basic raw materials which will form major part of your total cost of production. Next, based on your processing, we will have raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods. Raw materials are said to be the materials which are purchased and it is ready for processing. But work in progress, the process has started. It is neither a raw material nor a finished goods. The process has been started but not completed. 90% complete and 10% incomplete, or 10% complete or 90% incomplete will be called as work in progress. I'll put it the same wordings again. It is neither in the form of raw material nor in the form of a finished goods. Finished goods mean the goods which are ready for consumption, 100% complete. Based on this processing and also the proportion of cost, we have divided the materials now. We shall see the other classifications based on their economic values or the usages that can be made. Raw materials are those inputs intended for the combination or conversion through the manufacturing process into a finished product. They change their own form and become part of their finished product. We call it as conversion cost. The cost of converting a raw material into a finished product. The total cost minus the raw material cost will be the conversion cost. Next classification comes as components and parts. Just as raw materials are converted into finished goods in a manufacturing operation, components and parts are assembled into finished goods in an assembling operation. So when the industry is said to be an assembling industry, like car manufacturing, bicycle manufacturing, computers, laptops, watches, cell phones, so all these things are said to be the assembled products. When we come to the assembling industry, the parts, spare parts, the components that are purchased will become the raw material. We normally call it as industrial goods. Industrial goods cannot be consumed by the end consumer. It can be consumed only for further processing or further assembling, etc. So components and spare parts will come under the industrial products. Next is the maintenance, repair and operating inventories. For maintaining the machineries, for maintaining the building, we need certain materials, and those materials are called as maintenance, repair and operating inventories. Then work in process. These goods includes in the process of manufacturing and only partially completed. As it said, it is to be calculated for accounting purposes. In-process inventories provide a flexibility necessary to deal with the variations in demand between different phases of manufacturing. Finished goods. These goods will represent the completed conversion of raw materials into a finished product. They are ready for sale and shipment, and it is also ready for consumption. Resale goods. These goods are acquired mainly for resale. These goods are purchased by the wholesaler for the resale to the distributors or by the distributors to the end consumers. Normally we call these as goods. Goods are meant for resale. Assets are meant for personal consumption. If I purchase a land to construct a building or a house for me, the land is an asset. But the land is said to be an inventory, or land is said to be a goods for a real estate owner because he purchases and sells the lands. Same way like furniture mart. When I purchase furniture for my house, it is an asset. But for the furniture mart, it is goods. Anything that is purchased with the intention of reselling it at a profit, it is called as goods. Then capital goods. Capital goods are those goods which incurs a heavy investment with a longer period of life. These items are not used or consumed during a single operating period, but they will have their own extended useful lives and can be utilized over multiple operating periods. Tax laws will also require that such an item is to be capitalized and a predetermined percentage of its cost be recognized as an expense each operating period over a predetermined time frame according to the equipment classes. The next comes the construction materials. The construction projects will have the constructional materials, and they will also called as the basic materials or the components needed for construction purposes. Then hard goods or the soft goods. What one identifies as hard goods and soft goods will vary depending upon the industry involved. In data processing, hard goods are the apparatus, that is your computers and terminals, but soft goods are the software and the data storage media. Next comes the fuel and lubricants. Fuel and lubricants are used for oiling purpose for the equipment used in the process, which again varies with the types of industries. Stationery goods. The stationeries include the writing materials which are used by the people involved in this process. The last one comes as primary packing materials. The packing material, whether it may be a plastic or a paper, it is used to pack the finished goods for the sale. So the raw materials can be classified as the components and spare parts, maintenance, repair and operating goods, work in progress, finished goods, resale goods, capital goods, construction materials, hard goods and soft goods, fuel and lubricants, stationeries and primary packing materials. With the background of the meaning of materials management and the classification of the inventories, we shall see how the materials management is operated in an organization in the next session.